Hi guys, welcome to my channel, Lenette Looks. Today I'm going to be talking about a book I recently got through reading, and it's called Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. And this book was recommended to me by my big sister Laura, so thank you so much for recommending this book to me, because just like you said, it is absolutely fantastic. This book tackles so many subjects, important topics. It tackles loneliness, abuse, heartbreak, love, loss, abandonment, prejudice, discrimination, hope, keeping the faith, surviving, even when you don't know what to do or how to survive and you have to figure things out. It tackles so much. So the story follows Kaya Clark. She's a little girl and she's living with her parents and her siblings, and her mother leaves one day and does not return. And then little by little, her siblings leave, and then it's just her and her father. And why do they leave? Because the environment at home is not very good. And unfortunately, Kaya is, nobody takes her with them. That's the only thing that I was thinking about. Why didn't anyone care enough to take her with them? She was like the smallest one, and they just left. It was almost like, it wasn't described in the book any thought of of leaving her behind. It was like they all just left, and then it was just her and her dad. And her dad is an alcoholic, and he is verbally abusive and physically abusive, and Kaya had to see all of those things going on in the house. And then she was just left there with her dad, and he would go off and not even return for days. And she is a young girl. I believe at the time she was maybe 8 or 9. And so he leaves and she has no idea if he's gonna come home or not. So you can imagine, they live in a marsh area, wetland, and it's kind of like a swamp. If you don't know what a marsh is, it's kind of like a swampy area, similar to a swamp, but not quite. But it's a wetland, and they're very poor. So people in society kind of look down at them because they're looked at as, like, very poor. People don't understand why they're living there. Like, who would want to live in that environment or that area? But they were very poor, so obviously they had to settle somewhere where they could afford to live, and that in that area they were able to do that. She has to basically learn how to survive on her own. And so it is definitely a coming of age story. So you see her trying to figure things out, dealing with abandonment, dealing with abuse, dealing with the fact that she doesn't know why her mom left. Was she important enough for her mom to come back? And so there's hope there that maybe one day that her mom will come back or her siblings would return. And she's trying to survive, like, little by little every day. So she learns how to cook, she learns how to get through the marsh on a boat, because her dad had a boat there, and try to fish and collect different different things so she can have at home to make, for food. And that's where, like, the crawdads are. So there's a lot of crawdads there that she's able to fish and cook. And she even learns that, obviously she needs money to buy things. So she's able to figure out how to make money by selling the crawdads to a gentleman named Jumper. And him and his wife become very close to Maya after a while, after seeing her for many years, because years pass, and eventually her father, he just leaves. He leaves one day, he never returns. So she's basically left on her own to survive, to venture out in the world and try to figure out how she's going to survive, how she's going to make it. And obviously it's very frightening. She doesn't have education really. Her dad needed to make money, so her dad would prioritize, work around the house or helping him with things that he needed to get done. So he didn't really think that education was that important, because within his life, education had failed, or he failed at it, or education had failed to keep him. So he kind of like frowned upon it, like, oh, I went through the school system, and he basically had a lot of losses. He wanted to become somebody, and he had plans to become this successful man, and then little by little he basically had so many times where he had a lot of loss, and then he just went down the dwindling spiral, because basically he felt like his dreams were like shattered, and therefore he felt like he didn't have much to feel great about himself for. And then he just went downhill from there. Maya does not know how to read. She doesn't know how to get around at first and know where things are, and she doesn't trust very easily, because of course if your parents are the ones that abandon you, as well as your siblings, they left, those are the closest people that you feel are supposed to care for you and love you unconditionally. And if they leave, then what other people, who else are going to provide that type of unconditional love? It's a loss. Like, there's nobody that you can trust, right? So she becomes very isolated in this marsh, and she becomes kind of like very to herself, and she has to have tough skin, basically. The story shows you the resiliency that we can have to overcome certain situations that you feel like are much greater than yourself, and then you realize you can get through it and overcome it and figure things out. So she had to figure things out. She went to school and she got bullied so bad that she never went back, and the school system did not look for her after a couple times going to her house, and she didn't want to go back to school, so she was hiding. But nobody else bothered to return and try to help this little girl, and she was all by herself. She would eventually sell crawdads and to Jumper, the man that little by little started becoming very, almost like a father figure to her. So him and his wife became very close to her, and eventually like family, and she began to trust them, because little by little she realized that he really cared for her, and his wife was helping her as well, just in conversation and talking and asking her how she's doing. And as well, now she has like a business going on with them, so she's seeing him every day, just about to sell these crawdads to make money so she can buy food and she can actually survive. But eventually Maya, as the years go by, she's still living on her own. She's still able to live by herself in this way. And again, she doesn't have education, but she's able to get by. And society does not treat her very well at all when she goes into society, like the getting out of the marsh and actually going into where the majority of people live, that are not living in seclusion like she is. And she goes out there and she just gets looked at and discriminated against, you know, as if she's some sort of alien. The kids bully her. They don't like her just right off the bat. They don't like her because of where she's from, where she lives, and there's so many rumors about people who live along the marsh. So it's almost like society doesn't want her, the school system abandoned her or failed her, and her family failed to provide for her. So this little girl has to gather the strength and courage to basically be her own superhero, basically provide for herself as if she were her own parents, you know, love herself and care for herself and learn the ways of the world, basically learn how to survive in the world as a young girl trying to live a life of an adult. You know, she feels the most comfortable in her home in the marsh and seeing Jumper once in a while with his wife, and eventually she does get befriended by one of her brother's old friends, and he's a little bit older than her, and they start talking and stuff, and then little by little they get to know each other because he's out there fishing and then she's out there looking for crawdads. So they kind of get together and he starts talking with her and everything, and then eventually he realizes that she cannot read, so he offers to teach her how to read, and that relationship is very sweet and it grows into something more. So it's definitely a coming of age story where you see her growing from this little girl into a very knowledgeable woman who has persevered, and she's very sweet and caring at the same time. She has this sweetness about her, and she's very strong at the same time. She's like the strong little girl into the strong woman who has a beautiful sweet personality, and she has spunk to her, you know. She loves being out in the marsh. She loves nature, and the way it's written so beautifully. It's almost poetic. Even through the painful moments, the descriptions and everything, it's as if you're reading poetry. The descriptions that the author writes are written about the marsh and how the plants and the birds and the animals around, like everything is written so beautifully and so wonderful. I didn't want to put the book down. It's like every day I was reading the book, and it's like I wanted to continue the story and learn more about her and learn more about how she's going to persevere and survive. So I totally recommend this book. This book will have you so interested in Maya's life and how she's going to survive every day, and her world, and going through loneliness, going through heartache, heartbreak, going through loss, having faith and hope that maybe one day the person that was supposed to care for you will return, and falling in love and having heartbreak again, and having coming together again and finding love in different ways, in friendship, like with Jumper and his wife, and finding love with a boy, you know, as she's growing older and getting older, and having the courage to, how should I say it, having the courage to have someone love you, to open up and have another person love you in a way that, like, she wanted to fall in love. She was feeling like she was in love with this person and love this person, but it was so hard for her to trust. It was so hard for her to trust. Things happened. I don't want to get into too many details, but there's so much that happened. This story even has a murder mystery. So I was like, where did this come from? You know, it starts in the beginning and they're seeing this dead body, and then throughout the story you're wondering who the heck murdered this person. and it just unravels little by little as you keep going through the story. I really did want her to have the life of her dreams. As I'm reading this, I was like, I really want her to win. I want her to overcome, and she does, but it's just a trek and a challenge. It's like a constant, like, I have to climb this mountain and then here's another little mountain I have to climb, and then another one, and then another one. And then there's definitely parts where she has successes, and I was like, yes, she's finally like having success in life, and she's come to terms with things, and then all of a sudden something happens, and I'm like, damn, like, I want her to stably have success. The ending of the story, I wished it would have been more for her, but at the same time I was satisfied with it because I felt like it was real. It was realistic. This is not like a fairy tale where everything is light and airy and everything is good. This is like, I can see this happening in real life, and I felt like she accomplished a lot. She really did, considering everything that she had to go through to become the woman that she became, all the barriers that she had to face and overcome. I was just in awe of this girl. I was like, wow, now that's a true, she became her own hero, and she attracted love and kindness from other relationships, and she was able to get that and give that in return. It's like her family left, but she was able to experience Jumper and his wife as family, and they felt like they were her family too. And then she's fallen in love, and it's just, I don't want to go too much into detail. I want to still leave mystery, so that way you can read it and enjoy it and learn about her and her life and be interested and really dive into it without much spoilers, right? But the book, it just covers love, heartache, loneliness, isolation, desperation, abuse, alcoholism, abandonment, trust issues. I mean, there's a murder mystery, so there's things that need to be solved. Societal discrimination, okay, racism. It tackles a lot, and there's a beauty in the way that Delia Owens wrote this story, and she really did such a great job. I can't say enough. The writing was wonderful. The beauty in the way she explained everything, the heartache, the pain, the success, the trekking through life, not knowing who you can trust until you realize you can trust certain people, the learning and the life lessons, as somebody who was abandoned and had to fight to have a life. And I was saying to myself, my gosh, I would have been terrified living in the house as a little girl by yourself in this marshland, like a wetland, basically like a swampy area all around you, and having to, she went out there and she was like fishing and getting crawdads and all this, and it was dark at night sometimes, but she knew it was like, either if I don't do this, I'm not gonna eat. So obviously she did it, and she chose that life instead of going into the system because she felt like she just couldn't bear it. She couldn't bear any more disappointment, any more ridicule, any more. She just could not bear any more hate. It was like, I don't need any more. I'm just gonna live my life, and nobody bothers me here in this marsh area, and just learn how I can survive and do it in a way where I can survive well. And little by little she does. Little by little she does. And it was so beautiful, the relationship she develops with Tate, her brother's old friend from the area when he used to live there. And that relationship develops, and it was so beautiful. But anyway, I don't want this to go on so long. I highly recommend this book. I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads. It was an excellent read. It will not leave you bored. It will not disappoint. At least I wasn't disappointed. I wanted to keep reading it, and I wanted her life to have. I wanted her to have it all, because she had so little. I wanted the story to keep building and building and building, but obviously it does come to an end. But I was like wishing so much for her, because it was so unfair that she was just a little girl, and it was just so unfair, all the things that she had to overcome because of the fact that her parents just failed. They were losers. It was like they had all these children and they just went, okay, I'm gone. I'm not gonna do this anymore. Bye. Like, and I know that it happens, yeah, it happens. So anyway, thank you, Laura. I want to say thank you to my big sister Laura again for recommending this book. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for that. Bye.